Y'all, 2025 is the year I stopped letting bad habits run me. The thing about breaking bad habits is it's not just about willpower, it's about strategy. And there are some proven methods to actually address bad habits. And I'm planning to be more strategic in 2025. So if you're like me and you're on a quest to be a better version of you this year, then lock in and let's get into it. First, real quick, let me tell you who I am. My name's Liberia Jones. I'm a 45-year-old empty nester who is obsessed with self mastery and living this one and only life to the fullest. I share the things I'm doing, the things I'm trying, what's working, what's not working, in the hopes that it helps you too. And today I am sharing some of the methods that I am planning to use to address bad habits. There are a few areas of my life that I've just not advanced fast enough because of bad habits. They've been holding me back. Things like overspending or falling off my fitness routine. These things have cost me time, they've cost me money, and they've cost me self confidence and my belief in my ability to keep my word to myself. But when I think about the times I feel like I am moving forward, I realize that it's not just about willpower or motivation. It's also about the things I do to make it easier to avoid bad habits and to lean into good ones. We often act like motivation and willpower are personality traits that only a few people have, when the truth is they are implementing strategies to address bad habits, and we can do the same. In the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, he talked about the habit loop. He says that every habit has a cue or a trigger, a routine, and a reward, which is, of course, an outcome. And the key is understanding that trigger and then disrupting the loop. So we got to be about the business of disrupting the habit loop. Now, in order to disrupt the habit loop, this really goes back to a key theme I've been talking about in almost all of my videos, which is knowing and understanding yourself. You've got to have some self awareness to really break bad habits. Understanding your triggers is one thing, but also understanding the reward that you're getting out of it is another thing. And some rewards are not as obvious. Let me give you an example. Not getting out of the bed to go to the gym in the morning during the winter time. We've all done this. You're in the bed, you're under the covers, you're snug and you're warm, and you wake up. You're supposed to go to the gym, but it's cold outside those covers. And so you decide to stay right where you are. And the reward is that you get to stay warm and you get to stay in the bed. That is your reward. So, one of the ways you can disrupt that loop is doing something like getting a space heater to put in the room and put it on a timer so that by the time you wake up and it's time for you to go to the gym, it's warm in the room and you don't have to worry about the reward of staying under the covers and staying warm because it's actually warm outside of the covers as well. That's just a small example of understanding what the reward is, and then finding ways to disrupt the loop. Let's talk about the methods to address bad habits. I actually did some research because I am trying to address some of my bad habits. So I wrote down all of the methods that I use currently to address bad habits, but I also did a little bit of research to see what some of the experts have been saying about bad habits as well. So let's go through those. The reason I think it's key to understand the methods for addressing bad habits is because it gives you a toolkit. It gives you an arsenal of tools to address being human. A lot of times people are just like, just don't do that anymore. Just stop doing it. Just have discipline. That's not the answer. There are tools that you can use to help address being human. Humans lose motivation. Humans have bad habits. It's just part of being human, right? The first method I'm going to bring up is adding friction. Now, in previous videos, I've talked a lot about removing friction to make it easier to do things. But in this video, we want to make it harder to do the things that we've been doing. We're trying to break some bad habits. And so, some of these bad habits, we actually want it to be harder for us to do those things. And one of the things that you can do is add friction. In the book, The Happiness Advantage, the author, Sean Anker, talked about making something 20 seconds harder to do, just adding 20 seconds to a process being one of the ways that you can add friction to make it harder to do that. Let me give you an example. I have an overspending problem. It is way too easy for me to just spend money. And so, one of the things that I did to make it 20 seconds harder for me to do something like that and add friction is I went ahead and removed my credit cards from my Google Wallet and my Apple Wallet. Let's say I'm laying in bed and I see something I like and I try to go and buy it. I can't just click a button to purchase it. I actually have to get my credit card. And my credit card is usually in my purse, which is usually in a different room. And in the place that I'm staying in right now, it is downstairs. First of all, I'm not getting out of bed to go get the credit card. I'm just not about to do it. So basically, adding friction to the process makes it 20 seconds harder because it doesn't take long to go get my wallet and get my credit card, right? And type in my credit card number. But even that 20 seconds of friction makes a huge difference. So that is an example of adding friction to a process to make it harder for you to do it. The next method I'm going to call out is implementing controls. I used to work in internal audit at the Home Depot. And one of the things that auditors do is they look for controls in a system to make sure that it prevents bad things from happening. And that's something that you can incorporate in your day to day life. Figure out a way to implement a control. One easy example I can think of is using a savings account. I am a spender. I've said this multiple times. I am a spender. And even having a savings account isn't good enough for me because I can go and take that money out. A long time ago, when it took like 3 days to get money out of a savings account, having a savings account actually was one of the ways I could add friction to the process and keep myself from spending money in my savings account. It used to take 3 days to transfer money, and that would add friction to the process and make it a little bit more difficult for me to take money out of my savings account. Enter Zelle, making it take seconds to move money out of my savings account. Damn, Zale. One of the things that I can do to implement a control is to put that money in a retirement plan. Last year, I maxed out my 401k. I went ahead and maxed out my 401k and put a whole bunch of money into my 401k. I cannot get that money out unless I have one of the four reasons why you can pull money out or unless I retire. Those are the only ways you can pull money out of your 401k. You can put money into an IRA as well, and the same things apply. Another thing that you can do is put money into CDs, certificates of deposit. So it's like having a savings account that you can't touch. So what you do is you go to the bank and you say, I want to buy a CD. You can buy CDs for $1,000, $10,000, $5,000, however much. And each of the CDs come with a set amount of time, a term. So you can earn X percentage as long as you hold the CD for a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. You can buy CDs all the way up to 20 years, I do believe. But basically, the bank is saying, I'm holding this money, you cannot have it. And there's actually a penalty for cashing in CDs early. So that's an example of implementing a control. And implementing controls is another method to break bad habits. The next method I will mention is accountability. Accountability is a really, really good method to help break bad habits. And accountability could look like hiring a coach or a trainer or joining an accountability group. Even if you just have an accountability partner, studies have actually shown that you have a 65% chance of completing a goal if you tell someone that you are completing that goal. And they've actually shown that you have a 95% chance if you have regular check ins with either that person or an accountability group about that goal. So, accountability groups are super, super helpful. It's a great method for breaking bad habits. Another method for breaking bad habits is setting consequences. Setting consequences to deter you from the habit. I've actually heard on a few podcasts people putting up money against their goals and saying, if I don't hit this goal, if I continue to procrastinate and don't do the thing I say I'm going to do, then this money goes to charity or it goes to somebody else. So they actually like bet on themselves, basically. There's actually an app that allows you to basically enter a contract with the app, set up the goals that you're going to accomplish. You can do regular check ins and reports, but you also decide how much money you're putting up for that as well. And the app is called Stick, Stickk. Stickk. It's called Stick. I've never used it. I stumbled upon it while I was doing research for this video. They actually say that putting up money and raising the stakes for your goals increases the likelihood that you'll reach them by 3 times. So it increases the likelihood you're 3 times more likely to actually hit your goal if you put money up for it. And I've heard a lot of the podcasters and some of these, productivity and motivation gurus saying that they do that as a group together. That's one way that you can actually set consequences. The other thing that you can do is just make sure you are considering the cost of your bad habits. And sometimes our bad habits actually have a financial cost. Sometimes they have a true financial cost. I mentioned in another video that at one point in my life, I was paying thousands of dollars in overdraft fees. This is when I was wildly irresponsible with money. And I just was not on top of paying attention to my accounts and just kind of, swiping, swiping, swiping. And the truth is, the money that it shows in your account is not reflective of the other things that are coming out of your account. And so looking at your account and saying, oh, well, I have X number of dollars, I can go ahead and spend this, knowing that your light bill gonna hit in a couple of days is not a good idea, but that's how I was acting in these streets in my younger years. And so the cost of that was thousands of dollars of overdraft fees. So sometimes your bad habits have a financial cost, but sometimes they actually have a cost to your time. For instance, if you procrastinate on getting some work done, now you've got to figure out when you're going to get that stuff done. It can cost you lost time, right? So the habit of not sticking to my workout routine and my health routine, I'll call it health routine, over the last year has cost me a whole year of progress. I could have made so much progress this year, and not doing so, it cost me time. It can cost you a number of other things as well. It can cost you mental health. It can cost you your self efficacy and your belief in yourself, and it can cost you your confidence. So think about the consequences. That's one of the things that I'm working on, thinking about when I have these bad habits, rather than just being like, this is just kind of how I am. I'm thinking about, well, what has this cost me? What has being like this actually cost me? Whew. Another method is making swaps. So, swapping out certain things when you have a bad habit. One easy example is sugar. Sugar is such a bad habit for so many of us. I'm gonna tell you something, man. It's like the minute we were born, America decided to get us hooked on sugar. I'm sure there's sugar in formula. I'm sure it is. I'm certain it is. Anyway, all of us have sugar addictions. And so, if that's a bad habit that you are trying to get rid of, one of the things that you can do is make a swap or a substitute. So, for me, I definitely have a sugar addiction. I am trying to eat less sugar, and I have swapped sugar out for stevia and monk fruit, which takes some getting used to, but I actually like it now. I actually kind of prefer it. Sometimes I eat stuff that has real sugar in it. I'm like, oof, that was too sweet. So making swaps. The next method I'll bring up is changing the environment. So there are some bad habits that we have that are environmental for us. Actually, you know what? One example, and this is crazy. When my daughter was a little girl, I used to love Kool-Aid. Oh my God, I loved Kool-Aid so much. I would get up in the middle of the night and make Kool-Aid, and I would have drank that whole pitcher of Kool-Aid before lunch the next day. Because I drink a third of it before I go to bed. And then I drink the rest of the pitcher around breakfast the next day. I had to stop having Kool-Aid in the house. And my poor daughter, I mean, kids love Kool-Aid, right? I don't know how I drank more Kool-Aid than she did, but basically I had to stop buying Kool-Aid. She had to get on something else. She had to get something. She had to get a different juice because I had gotten out of control with Kool-Aid and I had to change my environment. This was my daughter's 21 now. This is back when she was like 5 or something like that. Another one is if you are anything like me, I went through this period where as soon as I woke up, I would pick up my cell phone and get on Instagram. Or my computer would be in the bed with me and I would wake up and I would immediately start working. I had to stop doing that. I had to change the environment. And one of the things that I did was I had to start sleeping with my cell phone in a different part of the room. Like I would leave the cell phone on my dresser clear across the room so that I wouldn't wake up and just immediately go to my phone. And instead, I had programmed Alexa to start my morning meditation. So I would wake up, I would say good morning to Alexa. She would start my meditation. I would do all that and then get out of the bed and get to my phone. So changing the environment is another method. The last method I'm gonna call out, and there's so many more methods for breaking bad habits, but these are just the methods I am calling out for purposes of this video. Another method is visual cues, having visual cues to remind yourself of bad habits that you have. And let me not say visual, because some of these are audio cues. So visual and audible cues, visual and audible cues are also methods that you can use as well. So things like timers. I love a timer. I love a timer. I used to be tasked with when I was a teenager, I was tasked with baking cornbread. I always had to make the cornbread for dinner, and I hated doing it. I didn't actually like cooking when I was a teenager. I love cooking now, but I did not like cooking when I was a teenager, and I would put the cornbread in the oven, and I would go to my room and do whatever I was doing and completely forget about the cornbread. And so I got in a bad habit of burning the cornbread. And that bad habit, although I love cooking, that bad habit followed me into adulthood. I put things in the oven and completely forget about it. And so now one of the things that I do is make sure when I put things in the oven, I set a timer. Either I set the timer on the stove or I set a timer on my phone. So using timers and things like that has been a really great audible cue for me. And you can use this in a number of ways. So if one of your bad habits is that you take a long time to get over things or you get upset about things and you feel yourself stewing, maybe set a timer and say, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to stew on this, and set a timer for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, it's time to move on to something else. There's a lot of ways that you can use audible or audio cues to break bad habits. Another one is notes, putting notes up, sticky notes. I actually literally have a sticky note right here. Let me show it to you. I'm going to record a quick video of it while I'm on the phone with you. While I'm on the phone with you, I'm gonna record a quick video of it while we're sitting here. Actually, let me clean my camera off. I have a visual cue right here that says, take a photo. Take a photo, girl, because one of the things that I always forget to do when I sit down to record a YouTube video is to take a photo for my thumbnail. And I get so pissed off. And I actually created a checklist in Notion that I'm supposed to go and check off, but I don't do that either. So this was one of those things where it's like, you need a visual cue. So as soon as I sit down, I see the sticky note and I remember to take a photo. So those are just a few of the methods that I have implemented myself, that I've stumbled upon, and that I found during my research to address bad habits. Now, one of the keys is, and I said this earlier, this requires self awareness. You have to be aware that you actually have a bad habit. Number one, you have to know that this is a bad habit and that it's not just a function of your circumstances. Right. I think a lot of times we just assume that some things are just hard for us. It's just hard for me to be consistent. It's just hard for me to XYZ, or this just happens this way. I think we need to be a little bit more self aware and aware of how we fit into a circumstance. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. And I was on a live with my nutrition coach, and she was talking about how we need to have consistent sleep throughout the night, that it's important that we have consistent sleep throughout the night. And one woman said, well, she wakes up in the middle of the night every night, and that's just how it is. And we were like, but why do you wake up in the middle of the night? That was happening to me for a while as well. I realized I was waking up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night every night, and it was disrupting my sleep. And I almost just accepted that as circumstances. And then I said, well, is there anything that I can do differently to adjust these circumstances? And I realized that I was drinking water late. So I stopped drinking water after 8 o'clock and I sleep through the night. And in her case, I don't know what the answer was, but we don't have to stop at this is just happening to me. Let's, kind of dig into what are some of the ways that we can help this circumstance as well. So we have to be self-aware as well to understand that either we have a bad habit or that we may have more control over a circumstance than we think we do. All right, all that talking. I'm going to tell you what my bad habits are that I'm trying to address in 2025. I got a lot of bad habits. Just like most humans, I have a lot of bad habits, but these are the ones that I am calling out that I really want to address this year. One is overspending. I've said it multiple times in this video. I am an overspender. Your girl likes to spend money. And it's so funny because I don't collect a lot of things. I don't have a lot of clothes. I don't have a lot of shoes. I spend a lot of money on travel and experiences. I love a good trip. God, I love a good dining experience. I love a good dining experience, man. Mm. And real quick, how I plan to address that next year is I don't plan to use my credit cards next year. That sounds kind of wild to say out loud. I think I'm committing to it, not using my credit cards next year. Now, I do plan to take one credit card and use it to automatically pay my bills and then just automatically pay the credit card next year. But swiping my card while I'm at Target, swiping my card while I'm at a restaurant, I'm not doing that anymore. If I don't have the cash, I ain't buying it. because my credit card debt has gotten out of control and the amount of money that I am spending every month on interest could buy me a really nice car. And I don't even want a car, but it could buy me a really nice car or get me a whole bunch of flights. I could be flying somewhere with that money. I am not planning to use my credit cards this year and to only spend money that I literally have. If I ain't got it, I ain't getting it. The other bad habit that I have is falling off of routines. I love a routine. I really thrive when I'm in routine, so I don't understand why I fall off of them so often. But it happens especially when I'm traveling. Oh, I think I just found the answer. I travel a lot. And so when I come back from trips, it takes me almost like a whole week to get back into my routine, which sounds crazy to me. That's 7 days. That's a long time. That's a long time to lose falling off of a routine. And so one of the things that I am hoping to do this year is do a better job of sticking to routines. And the method of addressing the bad habit I think that I want to use is accountability. And the way I'm using that accountability is I've been sharing weekly vlogs. I just started doing that a few weeks ago. I'm going to continue to do that. And going forward, my plan is to create a productivity community where you all and I can actually work together to define what our routines are, to track and manage our goals, and then to check in and hold each other accountable. So I really would love to have that group so that we can all help each other and hold each other accountable. So that is one of the ways I am hoping to address that bad habit. Another bad habit I have is procrastination and doing things last minute. Man, in high school, all my best papers were written last minute. All my best work was done last minute in college as well. I distinctly remember my senior year in high school, I was taking African American history in college. So I was dual enrolled. It was my senior year in high school, and I had my term paper due for African American history in college at FAMU. I wrote that term paper the night before it was due. So I started on it the night before it was due, and I was literally still writing it up until the time that I had to leave my high school and go to my college class to turn it in. Back then, we had to like physically turn in papers. I had to print them out and turn them in. I was still working on that paper until I had to turn it in, and I got the highest grade in the class on that paper. So in the past, I have been rewarded for being a procrastinator, which is not good. So it has stuck with me over the years, and I work really fast. So for me, it's easy for me to just get something done last minute, but that is not something that I want to continue to do, especially when it comes to my business. I want to be very forward thinking and give myself the brain space to be more creative and to have a vision. And that's harder to do when you're always trying to catch up to the things that you said you were going to do last week or yesterday or things like that. And so one of the things that I've been doing to address that is accountability. I've been inserting my team into a lot of processes and bringing on team members. So, for example, for YouTube content creation, this was something I would procrastinate on a lot, but I have now brought on editors to edit my videos. And in order for them to edit the videos, I have to record the videos in enough time that they can go and edit and then send them back to me so I can review them and then they can update it based on my feedback and then I can get it again and then post it. So that requires me to not procrastinate. If I procrastinate on recording the videos, then they're not going to get it in time to edit it so that I can post it. And so inserting people into the process that I am accountable to is something that I am hoping is going to address procrastination this year. The last bad habit I'm going to mention, it's not the last bad habit I have because I got plenty of those. The last bad habit I'm going to mention is overworking. I am definitely a workaholic and I tend to overwork. Now, I will say I take breaks, I rest. I'm not afraid to rest. I believe that rest is restorative. I believe that rest is productive. But when I am honed in on getting something done, when I say I'm going to post 7 videos next week, I'm locked in. And I will look up and I've been at my desk all day long. That can happen to me easily. I will lock in and be laser focused for hours upon hours upon hours. And that's just not healthy. It is not healthy. Even if I'm taking breaks, even if I'm doing this for like 6 days and then I take a break and don't work on day 7, that's really just burnout. That's not It's just not healthy. And so one of the things that I went back to is time blocking. And the method for addressing this bad habit is actually a visual cue in this case, because just time blocking was not good enough. Time blocking is basically when you set a specific time to do some work and you work in a block of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, and things like that. Before, I would just put time blocks on my calendar. And when the calendar notification pops up, I should stop working. But lately, that has not been happening. The calendar notification pops up and I just ignore it because it's just another notification on my computer. So I went and bought a little Pomodoro timer to keep on my desk as a visual cue. I can easily start that timer by just, setting it down on the amount of time that I want the timer to be on. So if it's a 10-minute work stint, if it's a 25-minute work stint, or if it's a 50-minute work stint, the timer comes on. And when it's done, it literally beeps this kind of annoying beep. It's a visual cue because I can actually see the timer counting down, but it's also an audio cue because it's beeping. And here lately, I have been doing a really good job of once that timer goes off, I literally hands off keyboard. I might make a note of like, here's where I stopped and hands off keyboard. And I literally have to get up from my computer and go do something else. And that something else cannot be work related. It's not like, "Oh, where I'm gonna stop this project and just work on something else," which is another thing I was doing. I also have realized that I can't stop doing that and then get on another screen, go hang out on Instagram or look up something on the internet. I have to get up and go either do something physical, like put the dishes away, put laundry in the washing machine, go for a walk, or I have to do something that's completely decompressing. And so I'm using a visual and audio cue to address that bad habit. We'll see how it goes. So those are my bad habits that I want to address this year. Feel free to let me know what yours are in the comments. Just share, one or two bad habits that you want to address this year in 2025. And let's figure out what's the best method to address that. You can share what method you're thinking about, and then we can also give you ideas as well. Let's brainstorm together in the comments. Now, there's just a few key mindset callouts that I just want to throw out there for you and for me as we are working on becoming better versions of ourselves. One is, of course, progress over perfection. I hope that we don't get too annoyed with ourselves or too irritated with ourselves or throw our hands up when we have challenges doing this. The goal is to make progress. The goal is just to get better because we all have things that are more difficult for us. Some things are inherently more difficult for some people because it's just the way we're wired. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. It just means that there are certain things we have to just work harder towards. There's just some things that we have to be more intentional about because we aren't perfect. So let's focus on the progress. Let's not focus on perfection. The other thing I wanted to share as a reminder for me and for you is just that we might fall off, right? We might implement some of these methods to address this bad habit, and that bad habit might pop up again. It's okay. A couple of things that we can do is one, plan for failure. So, what's our backup plan if things don't work out? And the other thing is, the good thing is, the thing that I love is once you have a system in place or a method in place to address your bad habit, even if you fall off, you can fall right back on. You can get right back on the train. Okay. So it's not like if you fall off, it's over. Oh well, I just couldn't figure it out. You have a system in place. So look at the system again, look at the method again and decide if you need to tweak it or if you just need to hop back on the horse. Let's just get it back together and keep it moving. And the last thing I want to remind me and you is that there will always be some bad habit. We might fix these bad habits and another bad habit pop up. You know why? Because we're humans. And there is no cure for being human. And self mastery is a lifelong quest. We're going to continue to work on things. We're going to continue to get things right. And then new things will pop up that we've gotten wrong. And we'll continue to work on those. And some of those things will just be like, it is what it is. But self mastery is a lifelong quest. There is never a point at which we are completely perfect and we can just wrap it up with a bow and say, we're done. We're done improving and growing and changing. All that said, by this time next year, I would like to look back and feel really good about the progress that I made addressing some of my poor habits and remembering that it is not about being perfect, but it's about building trust with myself and seeing real change. So, cheers to 2025 being the year that you and I finally break our bad habits. And one of the best ways to identify and address bad habits is to consistently review yourself and your habits. And I posted a video on how I do a weekly review. I think you should check that video out. So check it out here or here. Yeah, check it out here. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for stopping by.